really thought about what I would wear tonight. I kept evaluating how I wanted to portray myself and what image I wanted to present. I kept imagining over and over in my head, changing outfits, until one moment I realized I just needed to be me. So here I am. My story followed a similar path, until once again a moment of clarity helped me realize what I need to share tonight, or what I needed to confess. I'm not marriage material. Whew, there, I've said it. Whew. Hey, did you notice? Your world hasn't ended. Wait, neither is mine. Whew. Some part of me actually thought it would by admitting that. After my first marriage ended, someone I held very dear told me this. It devastated me. It slashed a hole in the essence of my being. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's the way it was. Deep down, it translated to, I failed. I'm defective. There's a problem with me. Why would anybody invest time in me? And she sees the real me. Useless. Why did it affect me so deeply? Well, I didn't realize at the time that my self-worth was tied to being accepted by a man. And more than that, to being needed by a man. And to understand why I had this outdated idea of love, we have to go back in time. Way back to the first years of my life, in fact. Whew. Time stands still. Time stands still in the mind the moment a 3-year-old's soul is shattered and she walks broken into an abyss from which parts of her never return. Incomplete, she no longer has value. Sorry. The body grows, and with it failed attempts at love. Troubled by painful memories, trying to fill the void she knows that she has not earned, yet continues to punish herself for nonetheless. For a time, she escapes the dark message that reverberates through her core, but she's always drawn back. She's always reminded, like a knife, reopening the wounds that never truly heal. Her life force continues to seep out unnoticed by most. And the hope, it gushes to the floor with a thud. For weakness that knowing brings prevents her from saving it. Time stands still in the mind, the moment the soul of a 3-year-old is shattered, and she walks broken into an abyss. I have few visual memories, flashes of visual memories of the abuse I experienced at a young age. The perpetrator remains a dark shadow, masked by my consciousness to protect me. That didn't stop me from experiencing many symptoms of trauma. My body, I didn't grow up feeling like my body was my own. I actually didn't want it to be, which is probably why dissociation was my coping mechanism. Growing up, I didn't feel my body, I didn't feel it was something good. I believed that I had a darkness running through my veins that caused men to be able to do things to me that I didn't want. I had no right to say no, and my no meant nothing anyway, so it didn't really matter. I believed that I was put here to serve, and if I couldn't do that, I was worthless. Whew. When the second perpetrator entered my life at around age 7, and I told my mother about him exhibiting himself to me, my inherent belief about being inherent wrong, deep down, was solidified by the look in her eyes that my young self misinterpreted. So from that point on, I hid, like so many people do. I dealt alone with nightmares, the irrational fears of doorknobs turning at night, or the footsteps on creaking floors, shadows dancing on the walls, and later further symptoms of PTSD. I knew terror. Flash forward 20 years. After my first long-term relationship ended in my early 20s, I stayed in contact with my ex for a short time. One day he tells me he bumped into my dad at Timmy's, that wonderful meeting place. Despite the fact that my dad threatened disownment when I first started dating this man, he quickly became friendly with him and started calling him son. I felt like I was the one who was dating. This was my father-in-law for a time. On this particular day, my ex told me that my father asked him, or rather expressed in surprise, that he put up with me as long as he had. Ouch. That hurt. Pretty much reinforced the beliefs I already had about myself. I didn't question it, though, because it's something I could see my father saying. We had had a tumultuous relationship for years because of my rejection of the patriarchy that he was raised in and continued. The fact that I wanted more, that I had goals beyond finding a man and tending the hearth, didn't sit well with him. The fact that I broke the silence on things like depression, and that I made choices in my life that were non-traditional. I left the church to follow my own beliefs. I stopped eating red meat at about the same time, and I chose a career that meant living abroad. To him, this made me unrelatable, perhaps unmanageable. Don't get me wrong, I love my father, and I know that he loves me. Nonetheless, I have carried a current of guilt throughout my life for not living up to his expectations of what a woman should do or be for a man, for not being his version of marriage material, for being, in fact, what seemed more like a burden. I carried all of these beliefs into my marriages. In my first marriage, I felt so connected or impressed and drawn by the fact that my partner fell so deeply for me so quickly. I cared about him, so I thought I would give it time. He valued me at the beginning, at least I think he did, but that changed quickly into judgment. I never felt good enough. I couldn't do the right thing, I couldn't say the right thing, I couldn't be the right person. I wasn't for him. And after it ended, and I secluded myself in a little stone house in the countryside, hidden away, I didn't do the deep inner work that was necessary to understand and how not to repeat my pattern of hurtful relationships, because he wasn't the first. So I found a new one that would take it to a whole new level. Why you don't just walk away. Behind closed doors, secrets reign. Darkness develops little by little. Shame and fear instilled, control is gained. False powerlessness is believed, and one's soul is distant to protect its light. Behind closed doors, your dreams are trashed. Your trauma is used against you, as if shards of glass and unhealed wounds. You're beaten by the invisible hands of his misery and grief until your existence is made unbearable. Behind closed doors, you remain contained. Your family's safe, your loved ones safe. You take the blame. Survival becomes the focus. Give in to his demands, get through the attacks, and avoid the next. Behind closed doors, your body, your temple is defamed. You watch as it's emptied of its treasures for his ungodly gain. Yet no one comes to your aid because no one really knows all that happens behind closed doors. My core wounds and beliefs caused me to accept treatment that shouldn't have been acceptable. More than that, the fear of what my family would say, what my friends would say, and what this dear person who I haven't spoken to since would say. So I stayed longer than I should have in a role that killed me more each day. I'm still tempted to say I'm sorry for not being the person that I've been taught that I'm supposed to be, but that would suggest that I I have something to be ashamed for. I know now that I don't. I survived. And that's what's important. I take full responsibility. I know that if I had faced my demons sooner, then I wouldn't have had them reflected in my life experience. I couldn't have known that then. So, for a time, I lost my joyful, curious, compassionate self. That it somehow still existed. But eventually it was time for her to return. What I know now to be true is that I am a courageous, creative, intelligent woman who's also sensitive, nomadic, with a drive to make a difference, and bold. Some might even say audacious, as they see me rebuking tradition or what's sensible in their eyes. That's okay. It should be okay. And if it's not okay, that's unfortunate. But I've decided that that's no longer going to keep me from shining my light. The winds of change. The winds are shifting. I feel as they move from a gentle breeze to gale force gusts. They call out to me. I am fire, I am water, I am earth, but above all, I am air that needs to breathe and move, transform and bring life. Seek not to contain me, for trapped air stagnates, and with it the vibrancy and energy it transmutes. Let my gypsy soul soar. Let it rise higher than the fiercest blaze, higher than the highest tides, and higher than the tallest mountains. Let it feel the freedom of the atmosphere above all struggles. Let it rest in endless peace and dare to return anew. I don't need anyone's permission or approval to follow my heart, to take risks, or to work on my dreams. I can be in relationships that make me smile, with men who respect me, who honor my true self because I do. If I choose again one day to enter a marriage, so be it. If I don't, that's okay. I'll be okay. Because I know that there are many people to whom I can offer nurturance, guidance, and love. And that's what I intend to do from a new point, from a new starting point, from the starting point of loving myself first. And I hope that when you look for love, that's your starting point too. Thank you.